Can you see the roots? Absolutely massive. Lots of them. And when I pruned in there too, not either one of those. Actually mature and ready. Good morning. Welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. We are going to start in the more chaotic part of the garden and then move to where things are a little bit more organized. This here is the first garden space that we had on this property, and it looks a mess. That's because it is. It gets a little bit better as we move back, but these garden beds are starting to break down. It's actually kind of hard at this point to tell that there is a garden bed here because of all the volunteered tomatoes. If you are new to the channel, you may not know that tomatoes, they're like a weed here on our farm. They just grow like crazy basically anywhere. Most of these are probably the yellow currant tomato. That is what volunteers on our property most often. They are so good, and that's great. I am probably just gonna leave this mess here. I may kind of pull out what is in front of the actual bed here just to sort of keep this space somewhat claimed. And at this point, guys, it really might be fall and winter before I actually dismantle these beds and clean this up. Partially because some things are starting to come through here that I sort of want to leave. This gorgeous beauty here is a birdhouse gourd. This will like to grow on a trellis, so what I might do is kind of gently guide it that way so it can grow up the trellis here. I do have some things on the trellis that I would like to keep. Really, the tomatoes that you see here and the sunflowers, these are volunteers. These sunflowers probably aren't going to be in the way. The tomato might, and because of all the tomatoes that we have, I will probably pull that out. But I do have some passion flower that I would like to make sure doesn't get snuffed out. Right now, the passion flower is really putting its tendrils out, and it's starting to actually go this way, and it may grow along the sunflower. So there might actually be a little bit of space here for the birdhouse gourd to do its thing. I do have another passion flower vine on this side of the trellis. This does need me to come through and weed a little bit because it is getting really overtaken. There's actually some ants on that particular plant, but it's really struggling there right now because of all the weed pressure. There's not getting a lot of sun, and there's competition here for nutrition. The blackberry patch over on this side is doing well. It's kind of past its peak. You can see that a lot of the flowers are dying off, but we do have some immature fruits right here. They're all green. The fruits will turn from green to red to purple-ish to black, and that's when they're going to be the best flavor. We are a ways off from that yet, but that's all right. We are starting to see some new shoots. These are first year canes. Blackberries, at least the kind that I have, they will fruit on their second year growth. So this cane right here likely came up as a first year cane last year. And this guy will not fruit this year, but it will next year. Let's see, here's another first year cane. And another one. And there's some more. So the blackberry patch is constantly evolving like that. It's hard to tell what's going on here, but there are a couple of beds. I have an idea of what I'd like to put here, but I'm actually going to wait until we harvest the garlic before I worry about trying to clean this up too much. I actually need to start seeds really soon. Not just for the perennial that I'm going to put here, but for the fall and winter garden. I need to start thinking about that because I want to get the fall and winter garden set by the end of July so that hopefully we are getting everything harvested by Christmas. Here's the elephant garlic. I think I'm pretty much done collecting scapes. I don't really see any more, and as you can see, the plants are starting to kind of die back. I have actually pulled one out of here. I needed some garlic for some bone broth that I was making, and the bulb looked a little bit underdeveloped, but it's well on its way. And really what I'm looking for is for the bottom two pairs of leaves to really die back before we harvest. I actually have started to weed this space. It doesn't look like it right here, obviously, but back here I have weeded. And again, I'm not going to worry about this until we go to harvest because we're really not far from that. The muscadine grapes are so full and so lovely. We have gotten a lot of rain in the last little bit. You could probably tell it's a cloudy and foggy morning today, and we are going to get some more rain this week, and all of the plants are greening up so nicely. These grapes really are like the focal point and the spectacle of this part of the garden. You can see they are getting a little bit bigger. I feel like this particular variety actually flowered sooner than it did last year. There's a lot happening down here as far as weeds go, and yes, sometimes tomatoes are weeds. I need to pull these out, but I have some pumpkins that I would really like to be able to go crazy in this area. So I've got a lot of cardboard that I'm going to just lay down over these weeds so that the pumpkin can get an upper hand. This pumpkin is not the same pumpkin that we saw last week. This is a new pumpkin. You can probably remember that last week I actually tore the pumpkin out because the leaves didn't look right. It looked kind of diseased. There's actually two here, so I'm gonna favor this particular pumpkin and pull one out. But these pumpkins look good. These leaves look good, so I'm gonna let that grow. So I no longer feel like that particular seed is diseased. I don't really know what happened to it unless it just was really sensitive to Roundup, which probably is what happened. Some plants are more sensitive than others. We live in the middle of agricultural farmland where they spray the fields regularly. Actually, we had talked about last week how they hadn't planted this field across the street. I was getting a little bit nervous about that because I was hearing about farmers just not being able to plant because of fuel prices and things. But they did come through again and spray Roundup again. And so I think they are planning to plant out here, probably soybeans. Nothing really happened in this garden. I just have one plant that seems to be very sensitive to Roundup that did react. Thankfully, this pumpkin is okay. And so is this pumpkin. Again, I'm coming through with cardboard really, really soon. Ugh. That one looks a little less okay. Again, I'm not quite sure. I might just let that second one grow and see what happens. I guess I still really can't rule out disease. Among the chaos here, you can kind of see what is intentionally growing. The oregano, I probably need to come through and do another harvest pretty soon. And we do have some volunteer dill, which this is one of those things that was somewhat intentional. I grew dill here, goodness, I think it was 2 years ago, and then it's volunteered back every year since. And so some of this I do want to let flower and go to seed so that we keep seeing it year after year. Dill is one of my favorite herbs. So good, and I just managed to figure out how to dry it and maintain the flavor. That's been a struggle for me. Anywho, coming through here, I have done a little bit to sort of give some of these volunteer zinnias an upper hand in this bed. So I'll just yank out this tomato, but this makes me incredibly happy to see. These guys will take over and this will be beautiful in not very long. Oh yeah, heading back over here to the walking onions. They are doing their walking onion thing. You can probably see that some of these leaves are chopped off. Whenever I've needed or wanted green onion, I've just come out to this garden and gotten the greens off of the walking onion. But look, they're actually setting new little onions on the top of these little stalks. And what's gonna happen is they will get heavy and lay down, and then these little bulbs will root. Can you see the roots at the bottom here? They'll root straight into the ground, and this is why they're called walking onions, because they kind of migrate along the garden. Okay, let's go chat about what was affected by the Roundup. Now this is one of the plants that's closer to this field. These here are Jerusalem artichokes, and they were affected by the Roundup the most. They've got shrivelly on the top. They can and maybe will break out of this. This isn't going to kill the plant. This is what overspray looks like. A lot of times it doesn't kill the plant, but it can really shrivel them up and kind of stunt them and set them back. You can see this plant is putting out side shoots, so it'll be fine. It'll have enough foliage. What we really harvest is the tubers, and they'll be okay. Some of them look really good. I was hoping to see flowers out of this bed this year, and I still have high hopes for that because some of them look all right. This is the one bed, I actually did weed 2 beds, but this is the main one that I weeded not that long ago. It was pretty darn bad, but it looks so beautiful right now. One of the reasons that the weeds are so bad in this particular garden space is that this is my first year mulching with my barn cleanouts, so hay waste and manure from under our rabbits specifically. And I knew that some seeds could be, you know, carried along on the hay and make its way into our garden, but I didn't realize I was essentially seeding a pasture by laying down that as mulch in the garden. So I had some regrets at first, but really this was not hard to weed. Everything was really loosely attached, and it took me about 25 minutes to weed this whole bed out. And just imagine that this whole thing was basically a lawn with a few plants poking up from underneath. And you know, well, it really wasn't that bad considering how many weeds there were. But if you've noticed, we will get some flowers off of our echinacea. I wasn't sure how old these plants were. They won't flower in their first year, but they will in their second year. So it looks like, my goodness, look at this one. We're going to be getting a lot of flowers, and that's exciting. The cinnamon basil has loved all the rain we've gotten. I've been freeze drying this too, and it freeze dries really well. I found a volunteer zinnia over here while I was weeding, so I decided to leave that. And I think our little variegated sage has actually grown, which I'm surprised with all the weed pressure that was around it. But that looks to be about twice the size as when I bought it, so that's nice. The blueberry bed is the other bed that I weeded, and I pulled out the 2 dead plants. The 2 blueberry plants that did survive winter don't really have any fruit on them. I know that there's probably something that these plants are missing nutritionally. Actually, there's a couple little fruit over here, but really not much to speak of. I haven't decided yet if I'm gonna put another blueberry plant in the middle or not, because these will get decently big. We'll see what I end up doing. Back behind them is my asparagus patch. I think I'm officially done harvesting asparagus, even though there are some larger spears that I could harvest. The plants really just need to reach for the sunlight at this time of year to make sure that we can maintain the root system. If you harvest too much asparagus, they're not going to have enough above ground growth in order to feed the root system, and then the root system can die over winter. They can also die if they're choked out by weeds, which again, tomatoes can be a weed. And so really, I think this is my next spot that I'm going to give the most attention as far as actual weeding goes. Over by the pumpkins, I'm just going to lay down cardboard. The gorgeous elderberry plants are a little bit past their peak. Got some clusters of flowers that are starting to sort of brown and die off, but that's not a bad thing. Once they're done flowering, they will turn those flowers into the lovely elderberries that we like to make syrup out of. They're beautiful. This plant is absolutely massive. I'm so proud of it. It does so well every single year. And some of these flower clusters, this isn't even the biggest one, but they're huge. There's some in there that are just amazing. So big. Look, I have to back up so we can see it all. This will be so nice. It's going to be really loaded down. You can see when the flowers fall off, see the little tiny green berries? These will swell up more. They'll turn green, a lot like the blackberries, and then they go from like a reddish purple to black. All right, we've got this bed over here that also needs a little bit of attention, but I did poke in some melon seeds, and see, we've got a little bit of what looks like could be Roundup damage right there on that plant, but there's a couple of them here that are doing well. I'm gonna pull out some of the extras to give that one a little bit more chance. There's 3 planted right here too. I'm just gonna take 2 of them out. And then there's one here. Maybe this is the next bed I will weed, because I really want those melons to get a chance, that's for sure. These are our armpit melons, which is a cross between a Kajari and a Charente melon. As we exit this garden space, I didn't want to forget to show you that I do have a volunteer squash growing in the compost. So that is our compost volunteer for this year. Usually it's tomatoes, and you know what? I'm not seeing any tomatoes volunteering right now in this space. I've just got that and some elderberry that has popped up. Over in the compost, we have had Tromboncino volunteer. I have had Patty Pan volunteer. It could be a pumpkin. That would make me the most happy, because I have the other 2 types of squash growing in other areas already. But our pumpkins are struggling a little bit, so I would love for that to be a pumpkin. I don't know if it is though. Just gonna have to wait and see. So, you know what? This is something that I thought maybe happened last year. I did see a few flower clusters on this grapevine last year. And then once the flower clusters were done, I never did find berries. And that's what's happened over here. There were a ton of flower clusters on this grapevine, and there's no little berry clusters to follow. So really interesting. That's pretty sad because I was really excited about this plant, but you know, it could be that there's just too much shade here for them to set fruit. Grape people, if you have any ideas, let me know. I actually don't know what kind of variety this is. For all I know, it's like a wild grape. There is a vineyard about a mile up the road, and the previous owner of this house says that it genuinely could be from that vineyard. But I imagine if it was some sort of cultivated variety, it would have done a little bit better. But I don't know. There's actually no fruit over here. We already looked at the muscadine grapes for reference, but of course I forgot to come over here and show you the sunbelts, which is a crime because look at them. Look at how beautiful they are. The clusters are huge. These are so much bigger than they were last year. Look at that. It's just a handful. The grapes themselves will get, a lot bigger too. And these will go from green to a reddish to a purple. Oh, so beautiful. So we do have grapes, don't you worry. Lots and lots of them. We do not have cherries though. We had a windstorm that blew off all the cherries, or most of the cherries that were on this particular tree, and then the birds came through and got the rest. I've actually been eyeballing this one cherry that's left on this plant. You can kind of see the bird damage that is on that particular cherry. As I noticed the birds start taking the cherries, I plucked off a couple and tasted them, and they were super, super sour. So they weren't ready to come off. I figured maybe the birds would wait until they were ripe, but no. So next year, I am going to throw bird netting over the cherry trees, and we should get a harvest as long as the wind is nice to us, which it's usually not. Hello, sir. Good morning. You can see he's doing a great job dismantling this bed here. Yes, he is. For some reason, he doesn't like it being there. My camera does like a Pavlov's dog situation. Buster knows when the camera comes out that he gets a treat. The kids' garden has a gate now, which is fun. I think Addie said she came in here and mowed yesterday. It looks like it. Look at the potatoes. Bentley is so excited that his potatoes have done so well. I am too. This is the first year for this garden bed, but it does have rabbit manure in it, and rabbit manure does a lot of great things. Molly's sweet corn is getting really tall. It's probably at least 3 feet tall. She told me, yep. She told me she was starting to see that it was going to tassel. This is the pollen part of the corn plant, and it'll get real big. We'll see it, and it'll basically have the tassels out like little fingers, and it'll pollinate the corn. Addie's peanuts are kind of growing a little bit slowly. This is our first year growing peanuts, and so I'm not sure if it's normal for them to grow a little bit slowly. They also kind of have a little bit of browning on the leaves. If any of you people have grown peanuts before and you have some tips, let us know. Shika's popcorn has really taken off. We could probably remove his little bird scare. We had put this in because the birds looked like they were trying to take out the real baby seedlings, but they're past needing that now. Sorry about the roosters. It's a farm. It's the morning. I fertilized their melons and they really took off. They took a little while to get going, but what they needed was nutrition and probably a decent amount of rain, which we have gotten. And so this golden watermelon, I believe it's a smaller watermelon that we put here, has started to reach for the trellis, and we're helping it along. We've got maybe a little flower bud pretending to come on there, so we'll see. I believe this here is like a cantaloupe type melon. It's doing better than it had been. The girls' tomatoes are a little bit wild and crazy. We have not come through and done any pruning or done any staking up, so hopefully we don't regret that with all the rain that we're getting. Their peppers are looking really bushy and great. Shika told me that he had a baby pepper on one of these plants, and I believe him. I don't know which one it is. But their cucumbers are also doing great. They need a little bit of coaxing back on the trellis. See, that one grabbed. This is going to be lovely in no time. we will come peek at the rose arbor. New growth on the rose plants is red. And this happened when I pruned those buds off of the plant. And this is going to encourage a little bit more blooming for us. The tea roses that I have tend to bloom throughout the season. They have a lot more in springtime, but we'll get roses here and there until our first frost. Good morning, guys. I just ordered them a bigger pool, so that's coming. These guys are a joy to have over here. We've got 2 Nanking cherry plants next to the greenhouse. They flower kind of early, and we did get we got a couple of them, late frost and freezes, and I don't actually see that they've set any fruit this year. So hopefully next year. The plants are really big and nice. I think we're gonna go out on the lane before we go into the greenhouse. I'm actually most excited to show you guys the progress out here. It's high time for me to fill these strawberry cups with soil and get some of these little runners going. Actually, during this week of rain would probably be the most ideal, because I am a little bit nervous about my capacity to make sure that these little cups stay moist. We get a lot of sun and a lot of wind around here, and a small container like that is going to dry out really fast. I have high hopes though. I may even just kind of take some of these runners, and like paper clip them or binder clip them straight up into the cup, because this is going to hold more moisture than something small like that. So that's an idea. Look at the lavender coming on slowly but surely. Beautiful. Just loving all the rain that we got. It's a very delicate scent. Our 12 potato bags are growing awesomely. I have actually been weeding out here. This is where I've spent a lot of my time, is on this space, on this lane, and in the greenhouse. So the potatoes are big and bushy. Still this week, no signs of flowering, but they're doing their thing. My peppers are coming along a lot better than they had been. I was able to graduate some of them away from the little baby trash cans and actually encourage them to grow more bushy. So what I do is actually pinch off the top of the plant, and that encourages a lot of growth from the nodes of the plant, or where the leaves are attached to the main stem. You can see we've got a little bitty arm coming out of that node. That's good. So this plant is going to grow bushier and a little bit more compact. That's important for us with all of the wind that we get, so the plants don't just snap off, especially under the weight of peppers. It can and probably will still happen. But yeah, some peppers are taking off and some are not. These guys over here are pretty well shaded out by this squash. This here is the south side, so there is some sunlight that comes down through there, and I can prune some of these back to help give those peppers a little bit more sunlight. We'll see what I do. But I'm sure you noticed we've got flowers coming on the scallop squash. This here is a male flower. It's got pollen in there. One of the pests that I have the most out in this space are cucumber beetles, and that's who we see nestled down in there. Can you see them? They've got little stripy butts. Those are cucumber beetles. This here is a female flower, and I can tell because there's a little immature fruit at the base of the flower, and on the inside it looks different. There's a cucumber beetle in there too. This might not be necessary, but this is something you can do if you want to ensure pollination of your squash plants. You can take the male flower, rip off the petals. This makes it a lot easier. There's my little cucumber beetle friends. And use this to pollinate the female flower. Just get the pollen all along. And that's pollinated. I did a little bit of that a couple days ago down here. So we've got fruit there. There's fruit coming on right there. I only have these 2 scallop squash plants. These are the first ones to flower and set fruit. They really set it fast. Look at that one. That one's pretty big. These are the green lightning patty pan, and it's a hybrid variety. I think it's supposed to be mildew resistant. It's getting a little bit hard for me to see my plant tags in the beds now, but This is the spaghetti squash bed, and I planted this from saved seed. And if you followed our spaghetti squash journey last year, I did the same thing. I grew 8 plants, and I think 2 of them were actually spaghetti squash. Because I've grown a lot of squash at the same time, and we have a lot of pollinators here, sometimes you can get cross-pollination. And what I grew last year was mostly weird hybrids by accident. Some of them were toxic, which is a thing. Toxic squash can happen when you have certain crosses of plants. You know it right away because the fruit tastes like soap or really bitter. I'm happy to report though that I am pretty sure that all of these plants are actually spaghetti squash this year. I can see the very immature female blossoms coming on, and that looks proper. That looks right. Here's the next plant over. That looks right. Here is the next plant over. And that looks right. And the last plant in this bed looks correct. So I think we actually have spaghetti squash this time, which actually makes sense because I pulled a lot of the other squash plants that were growing alongside the parent plant to these plants last year because they were toxic. And then the one that I had been harvesting from that was more like a summer squash, that one died off pretty quickly. So a lot of this fruit came on a little bit later, and so it's bred true, which is awesome. This is our tromboncino bed, and we've got some little immature tromboncinos right here. Those will get massive. Wait till you guys see that. These guys are growing several inches a day. It's incredible. I mean, that spaghetti squash is darn near to the top of the trellis, and I don't even know if it was barely attached to the trellis the last time we looked at it, was it? But yeah, it'll be to the top in 2 days, probably. You might notice that I stuck some beans among the squash. I don't know if this was the smartest place for them because of how much the squash leaves are shading out. I've done a little bit of pruning to try to give them a chance. Yeah, I pruned that vine off right there, but I don't know still. These are, I think, jade green beans that I put in. We'll see if they do anything. This last squash bed is the Autumn Frost, and this is also a hybrid variety. And I notice we have some little immature female blossoms as well. So for these being new beds with new soil, I'm very impressed with how these look. I am crediting it all to the rabbit manure that is underneath. We layered these beds and we filled them. First hay, then a little bit of soil, and then barn clean out, which is the hay and rabbit manure. And then I put a soil on top, which is why we don't see as many weeds out here. It's because all of that hay seed is underneath, you know, like 3 or 4 inches of potting soil, but the roots of the plants do have access to that rabbit manure nutrition, and it seems to be supporting the plants really well. Because sometimes when you see a lot of male blossoms but not very many female blossoms, it can just be timing. Lots of squash plants will put on their male blossoms first so that they are there and available when the female blossoms come on. But if you never see female blossoms or you see very little, there's a good chance that there's some imbalance there. And I'm not trying to say that I don't have any imbalances, but this looks a lot more balanced than my first year beds have been in the past. Our cucumbers, they kind of struggled to a start. They've gotten kind of ravaged by the cucumber beetles, but it looks like they may start to be getting their way out of it. I have noticed some birds here out on the lane, and while birds can be pretty annoying in the garden, they can also help you by plucking off either caterpillars or beetles or other pests. So I think they're actually helping us out a little bit. These 2 gherkins are a little bit further ahead than these ones, but I haven't strung these up yet. So it's, you know, decently tall. I need to string that up pretty soon. I'm starting to see a couple blossoms here. Oh, and there's an open one. See, that's a male flower. I don't know if I'm noticing any female cucumber flowers yet, but again, the male flowers can come out a couple weeks before. Look at how much the beans have grown. Last week or 2 weeks ago, last garden tour, we were just shoving the plants underneath the trellis to encourage them to grow, and they have taken off. Really, we should be starting to see blossoms pretty soon. These are the Kentucky Wonder pole beans. It's a very lush area of the garden, to be sure. This is maybe where I should have put some of the bush beans underneath the tomatoes. There's a lot more light and airflow under here. I do need to come through and prune a little bit. As you can see, I have been clipping the tomatoes to the trellis. They are a little bit congested as far as their leaves, but so far it looks like it's okay. This can be bad, at least in our area, because, you know, this is how disease can progress. No matter if it's raining or not, the leaves of our plants are soaked every morning, and this is just a vector for disease, which will eventually take them out. We just try to get as much harvest as possible before that happens. I'm looking on here because I do have some, oh, that was scary. But there's little baby tomatoes coming on these plants now. You guys see this one? It's kind of hard to get in here and see. See the tomatoes back here? Maybe we'll walk around to see that a little bit closer. I planted only 3 types of tomatoes out of saved seed. Well, the 3rd type was seed that I purchased. I planted ox hearts. I believe, which one are the ox hearts? I think it's these 2 on the end that are the ox hearts. Everything else should either be a Dr. Witchy or a Belgian Giant, which are like heirloom slicers. This though, this is not either one of those. See that there? We've got this long truss that looks more like a cherry tomato type. And then these little round fruits. This is a case of cross-pollination again, which is kind of sad. When you are trying to save true seed back, you can cover the blossoms of the plants with a little tool bag before the blossoms open. And then when the blossoms open, you just tap on the bag, because tomato flowers are self-pollinating. So they have everything that they need to pollinate themselves. And if they're contained in the bag, you know, bumblebees or whatever can't come along and pollinate that flower with a different tomato's pollen. And you should have a seed within that fruit that will breed true. It's something that I've talked about doing. I do have the tool bags, but I have not done it yet. But see that there, that looks correct. That looks like it's probably a Dr. Witchy's. We see really tiny fruit there, but it's got the fluting, it's got the shape. So I think some of these are correct. They're just not all correct. That looks like a fluted slicer too. I think we've mostly got what we're looking for, just with some surprises mixed in. See all the clover. We decided not to mow before all of this rain, because I wanted the bees to have access to all this clover for just in case that this is the last rain that we really get this summer. I wanted my bees to be able to put away enough honey so that they can take themselves through a season where there might not be as much blooming if we have a super dry summer. See all that clover? There's a lot of white clover here, and then there's quite a bit of red clover out in this pasture. It's a little hard to see, but there's a lot right here, and there's another big patch right there. The red clover, this is the one that's like edible for livestock. Back here, the Dutch white clover, that's actually toxic in high quantities. A lot of goats won't touch it. Anywho, it's not a goat video, it is a garden video, and things are starting to transition in here. This space, we are trying to hyper focus in getting cool weather crops rotated in here. 2 seasons of cool weather crops can be grown in this space. What I need to do is make sure that I have most of these beds cleaned out by the end of July. Again, I'm starting those seeds really soon, and those seedlings will be ready to come in at the end of July, so everything else needs to be cleaned out. A lot of this is really mature and ready to take out, which is awesome. Some of it, the bugs have decided I do not get to harvest. I think that that cabbage is a lost cause. It's gonna be chicken food. Interestingly, this green cabbage has a lot of caterpillar damage. See that? While this red cabbage has none. And what's extra funny is they flip-flopped when it came to aphids. Earlier in their season, I had quite a few aphids on these plants. The red cabbage is the one that had more aphids. It actually still kind of does. See that? Isn't that weird? Anyway, I do have things that I can treat this red cabbage with just in case, and I will. We like to use a product called BT, which is organic, and that's gonna be for the cabbage worms. Got some cabbages over here, which do have a little bit of cabbage worm evidence. You can see the damage here, but also there are little poops right there. Definitely got some worms in here. Look at that. Yeah. So I either need to harvest that or treat it. It's big enough where I'll probably harvest it. See, this cabbage is huge as well. See that? That's worth taking out versus treating. Got a little bit of evidence there. I need to get on top of it before that cabbage looper really just ruins this whole beautiful head. I did harvest a really big cabbage out of here a couple of days ago. So yeah, a lot of stuff is just ready to come out, mostly because of bug pressure, but some of it because it's actually mature and ready. I just harvested this cauliflower head a few days ago. It was delicious. And we've got this one coming not far behind, but there's a ton of caterpillar poop on it. I think the caterpillars are mostly focused on the leaves and not necessarily the head, but I'm not gonna treat this. Ooh, look, there she is. I'm not gonna treat this plant because I'll be harvesting that in the next day or so anyway. This electric fence is on, so I'm gonna have to throw this in there. And they're not as smart as chickens. Turkeys aren't. So I don't know if he's really gonna be able to see. Look what I got for you. Whoop. Yay. Come on, eat it. He got it. You can see I've thrown out cabbage leaves. When I harvested that big cabbage, the outer leaves went to the ducks and turkeys. And they are working on it. Just a couple of days ago, I came out and harvested off of these sugar snap pea plants. I have an 8-foot trellis here of sugar snap peas, and then on the other side, there's an 8-foot trellis of sugar snap peas. And I got 2.5 gallons worth of sugar snap peas. The first couple harvests we ate fresh, but this particular harvest I loaded up my freeze dryer with. They are kind of starting to fall over. This is partially just from the weight of all the peas that it had. Instead of falling, you know, towards the trellis, it fell this way, but that's okay. There's still quite a lot of harvest out here, but I think that maybe our harvest will start petering off. I don't see a lot of extra flowers. Ooh, look at you, beautiful. You guys see her? Oh, she's welcome. Anyway, flowers equals fruit, and I'm not seeing a lot of extra flowers out here. So I think our next couple harvests will complete the pea harvest for this year, at least for the sugar snap peas. Someone asked me last week if I was growing Malabar spinach. Yes, it's down here. This all volunteered. I think I maybe intentionally placed this one here, but they're moving a little bit slowly, I think because they're shaded out by the peas. But once these come out, that Malabar spinach will take over. There's some more tomato volunteers in here. These actually volunteered kind of at the edge of the bed. Can you see that? Isn't that funny? Look, cucumber beetles, turds. But yeah, these were Sweet Million tomatoes that I grew here last year, which is a hybrid, and so I'm not exactly sure what these tomatoes are going to be like. It takes a few generations of plants for a hybrid variety to really be stable and breed true. I think it's 7 or 8 generations of intentional cross-pollinating to get a plant to reliably breed true. So this here, it's going to be a 2nd generation of the cross, and really nobody knows what it's gonna do. I may not leave it for long, but so far, you know, I can walk through there, so I might as well leave that. Oh my goodness. I was showing the powdery mildew on these peas for you guys last week. I think it was like this high on the plants a couple weeks ago, and now it's basically all the way to the top. I don't know how much harvest we're going to get out of these shelling peas, but I'm gonna let them try to mature what they've already said. We could have a decent harvest still because there's a lot of pods here, but what I'm growing them for are not the pods. I'm growing them for the peas inside. And you know, the plants are struggling, so they may not have the energy to mature these pods. They're not doing too bad. They're pretty fat, but we'll see. All of this is an airflow issue, which you can hear. I have the fans going, but some plants are more prone to things like powdery mildew than others. Look at that. I mean, because of this plant is having a very hard time photosynthesizing, which is why I'm really not sure what we're gonna get out of it. What's extra crazy to me is it really only seems to be these pea plants and my chamomile that are affected by powdery mildew. Knock on wood, literally nothing else is affected. I still have these broccoli plants in here, for example, there's no evidence of powdery mildew over here. And actually these are still in here because they seem very resistant to things like cabbage loopers. I am seeing them a little bit. See, we've got some damage here. There's actually a couple of little cabbage loopers on that plant. So maybe I spoke too soon, but I've harvested the center heads out of all of these broccoli. And I've come through and harvested the side shoots 4 times. Actually just did it again last night, and I think I took a picture. I hope I did. But we had so much broccoli that we harvested out of here from side shoots that we actually had leftovers of the broccoli salad that I made last night. And broccoli salad is one of my family's favorite. We can really go through it, but we had extra. I have been continually impressed by this variety of broccoli. It's called the Green Magic Hybrid, and I got the seeds originally from Haas. I think the last things that I have to update you on in here are the carrots and the onions. This is our onion bed. I grew these from seed. They are the candy, yellow candy hybrid, and we are starting to get bulbing. Looky there. Oh, so exciting. So let's do a leaf count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So close to the ideal 12, and I will take it. So these onions are well on their way. It'll still be a few weeks yet before they are fully bulbed up. The tops are flopping over and we can harvest. But again, that's gonna be right on time for me to re-amend this bed and get it ready for the fall garden. We also have onions over here. These guys are a little bit further behind, but we do still have quite a lot of leaves. Leaves equals layers when it comes to onions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 right there. These guys are a little bit less robust. They had a little bit more of a struggle. The soil that's in here is a little bit more dense, so it's kind of compact. It tends to dry out a little bit more. This bed is not on my drip irrigation, and so I have to be trusted to properly water it. So that's probably why these are struggling a little bit more. Check the carrots out though. Gorgeous, gorgeous greens. And not only that, I think maybe we'll pull this one just to see where we're at. See, we're getting there. It's not quite ready. We had a nice full top here, but then a little skinny root. This is okay. This wasn't quite ready to come out, but it gives us a little bit of an idea of what's going on underneath the soil right now. The length of this is really nice, if you can see. We just needed to fill out a little bit more, which it can do in time. See the little roots coming in here? This is a rainbow variety. A little bit of a peak there. This already looks more promising than my last carrot harvest out of this bed. These were the big carrots that I harvested in fall time out of that bed. Most of it was just real tiny with a whole bunch of greens. So a little bit of a nutrient imbalance over there that I think is correcting itself. These carrots over here are a little bit younger, and you know, my goodness, we are still getting shallot flowers that I need to pull off. It's funny, I totally thought these were done doing their thing. We are starting to see the bottoms dying a little bit on the shallots, but they're still taking forever to really mature, but that's okay. We'll sit here and wait. Anyway, back to these carrots. Yeah, see how wide that one is? Maybe. That's pretty good. It's about 1 inch wide. I'm gonna leave these a little bit longer, but it is really nice to see everything sort of starting to come to a close in this space, because that's what I want for these plants right now at this time of year. So I have time during preservation season of all of the warm loving plants to take breaks from that, come in here, amend the beds, and get it ready for fall planting in the middle of summer. Anywho, that's it for the garden this week. I hope things are growing well wherever you are. I'll see you guys again soon.